Bonne Foi, Chapter 7. It was after 9 when I collapsed back onto the bed, Bella catching her breath beside me. After several quiet moments, I felt her turn onto her side to face me. Glancing over, I found her propped up on her elbow studying my face. "What is it?" I asked, unable to read her expression. "Nothing. I was just wondering about something." "Tell me," I said, made curious by the blush spreading over her cheeks. "The things you said earlier, it sounded like you had thought about them before. Do you, fantasize about me?" I laughed. She was so embarrassed, and she had no idea. What else would I do during class? "Oh, I don't know," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Pay attention, maybe?" "To sociology? No. You're much more interesting. Besides, how am I supposed to pay attention when you're right next to me?" She blushed again and stared down at my arm. "Does that make you uncomfortable?" I wondered. I thought I delivered that last bit quite charmingly. "No," she shook her head, smiling a little. "I like it, actually. I just can't imagine why you would think about me the way I think about you." "The way you think about me, huh? You fantasize about me?" I asked curiously. "Well, yeah, is that okay?" I'd made her nervous again. "I always assumed it was more of a guy thing," I said. Of course, I'd seen plenty of fantasies in female minds, but they tended to verge down a more romantic course than a sexual one. It's really something of a turn-on. "Really, you like that? You like that I think about you? Why wouldn't it be mutual?" "Touché," she muttered. "What do you fantasize about?" I wondered, more than a little intrigued. Bella was so innocent in so many ways, but she had a tendency to surprise me in bed. I wanted to know what went on in her mind. "No, I can't say them out loud." She shook her head furiously. I turned toward her with a coaxing smile. "Just one," I wheedled. "Nuh-uh," she said, burrowing down under the covers as if to hide. I placed my face close to hers, forcing my eyes to go wide, imitating innocence. "Please?" "No." She hid her face in the pillow. "That naughty, huh?" I teased. "I'm so embarrassed," she mumbled into the pillow. "Don't be," I insisted. "I've already told you I do the same thing." With a slight turn of her head, she allowed one eye to peek up at me. "Maybe if you tell me one of yours, I'll tell you one of mine." "All right, I can live with that," I chuckled, already searching my mind for a scenario that wouldn't scare the living daylights out of her. My fingers found the curve of her hip as I contemplated. "Okay, I've got one. You know that big desk in sociology classroom?" I waited for her nod. "I like to imagine bending you over it and flipping your skirt up. You're always wearing a skirt in that fantasy, you know, for convenience sake, and then I push your panties down to your ankles and take you from behind." Her mouth fell open in surprise, but she squirmed, tellingly, rubbing her thighs together. "I've thought about that too," she admitted. "Over the desk and everything?" I teased, knowing it would make her blush. "No, not exactly." "Your turn, then," I said. "I just told you I thought of the same thing," she said evasively. "Nuh-uh, play fair, Bella." She sighed and turned onto her stomach, hiding more of herself. "The library," she finally said. "The library?" I grinned. "I'm intrigued. Where in the library?" She bit her lip, barely looking at me. "The third floor in the back?" "And what happens there on the third floor in the back?" "I'm reaching for a book when you sneak up behind me. I drop the book as I turn around, and then you, tell me," I prodded quietly, already caught up in her fantasy. I could picture it, how she would stand on her tiptoes to reach for some obscure title, how she would gasp in surprise when my hands landed on her waist. You push me back into the shelf and you kiss me, and then you push my skirt up. Ah, so yours requires a skirt too. Maybe you should invest in some, I suggested. She blushed deeply. Edward. Sorry, I chuckled. Do continue. I can't wait to hear what comes next. She bit her lip. You push up my skirt, and then you tug down my panties and unzip your pants, and then you lift me up, and you... I couldn't stop a growl from slipping out. And I fuck you against the bookshelf? Yes, her breath hitched. While all this is going on, are you loud or quiet? I asked. Loud, she blushed. I can't be quiet with you. I suppose we won't be trying this one out then, I said regretfully. You'd be red-faced for the rest of your life if we were caught. Probably, she agreed. Those teeth came out to gnaw on her lower lip again. Are there any fantasies we could try? I chuckled to myself. The aroused little kitten wanted me to play with her. Maybe. Come here, I said, pulling her to me. Then I rolled onto my back, so that she was on top of me. She was pressed tightly against my chest, and my cock rested between her open legs. She squirmed, innocent and sexual all at once. What fantasy is this? I was thinking it might be the one where you're on top, I smirked. I'd love to watch you taking your pleasure from me. Already she was embarrassed. I'm not sure I know what to do, she admitted. Your body does, I said, urging her with my hands to sit up. Just slide back a little, and yes, I hissed. She had taken me in easily, probably by accident. Gravity did wonderful things, forcing her to take me deeper than ever before. She gave a pleasured shiver above me, and then began to rock, moaning a little. That's it, I groaned, setting the pace with my hands on her waist, guiding her movements. Bella braced her hands behind her, creating a wonderful view. My eyes were torn between her bouncing breasts and the sight of my cock buried inside her. It was every bit as erotic as I'd imagined it would be, especially as her head fell back in pleasure, emphasizing her heaving chest. My eyes roved hungrily up her body, from her glistening sex to her swollen nipples, to the pulsing thudding in her throat. That was a mistake. The sight of that vein, so full of her luscious blood, caused a shocking burn in my throat. I thought I was sated from my last hunt, but now I was struck with a painful craving for blood, rich, flavorful, human blood, the type I'd been deprived of since meeting her. Such a strange contrast, that arid burn in my throat, paired with the pleasurable burn that seeped throughout the rest of my body. I wanted so badly to sink my teeth into that bared neck, to rid myself of the pain and feel the pleasure untainted. It would be so easy she would never even realize what was happening. Unthinkable! I sat up and pulled her against me. She gasped as she took me deeper and clutched at my shoulders. I felt her nails scrabble against my shoulders, felt her vaginal walls clenching around me, and yet that was all peripheral. All I could think of was how good it would feel to have her hot blood pouring down my throat. My mouth was there at her jugular, her flying pulse beat a rapid tattoo against my lips. My tongue flickered against her skin, ready for the taste. Bella whimpered in response like the little kitten she was, and then she buried her face in my shoulder as she squeezed violently around me, muffling her cry of release. Her climax took me by surprise, and the force of it triggered my own. Just like that, the spell was broken. I was helpless against the tidal wave of pleasure. There was no room to think of anything else, not even the thirst that I had thought would haunt me for every second of my existence. I fell back to the bed with her, She was limp, nearly boneless, her meager weight like a blanket on top of me. For the briefest moment, I felt a flash of not exactly satisfaction, but contentment, perhaps. I couldn't be sure how to correctly label the foreign emotion, but that sounded right. Wow, Bella breathed without bothering to lift her head. You really liked that, huh? What gave it away? I forced a smirk, trying to regain some of my typical cockiness. Your eyes, Bella said, but there was no note of teasing in her voice. You were looking at me like, I don't know, like I was something to eat. I laughed uneasily. You do look pretty tasty. Bella surprised me with a sound that was suspiciously close to a giggle. Likewise. I couldn't think of a suitable response, but Bella didn't seem to mind. She merely shifted to snuggle into my side with her leg thrown casually over mine and her fingers playing on my chest. She sighed, sending a wash of sweet air drifting over me. I swallowed the flood of venom in my mouth and tried to think of anything other than her blood. She walks in beauty like the night, I recited in my head, eyes clenched shut. O cloudless climes and starry skies. Edward, she murmured, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Huh? Thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. You don't mind me staying, right? One shade the more, one ray the less. Why would I? Had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven trees. I've heard guys aren't really into that. Or softly. Into what exactly? I said, perplexed enough to open my eyes and brave the sight of her flushed cheeks. Sticking around after sex, she said bluntly. Oh, or softly lightens o'er her face. I don't think that applies to relationships, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear, their dwelling place. I just don't want to overstep any boundaries, she said, and on that cheek and o'er that brow. I mean, this is all new, and this is the first time I've been over to your place, and I want you to stay, I said bluntly. So soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow. Her smile was soft. I felt her lips curve against my chest. Okay. But tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. I looked down, and she was asleep. I sighed, and settled in for a long night. Bella's slumber was apparently deep. She didn't speak much, hardly moved. Limp as a cat curled up against me. A few murmurings of my name came out, but that always happened. I wondered about her dreams, what role I held in them. It would have been nice to see her dreams. When the talking stopped, I grew too bored to keep lying there. I pulled on a pair of boxers, grabbed my iPod, and made for the living room couch. God, I loved technology. In my youth, music was generally what one made by playing instruments or singing. Phonograph records held one song, and the quality was iffy at best. But now, one single pocket-sized device could hold thousands of songs and play them back in high-quality sound. For me, it was bliss. Turning up the music at full volume was usually enough to drown out all the voices for a while. Hours later, a warm hand on my shoulder jerked me out of my reverie. I had been so engrossed in Tchaikovsky that I hadn't heard her approach. When I opened my eyes, I found her standing above me, wearing that shirt I'd discarded earlier, biting her lip. I pulled out my earbuds to signal that she had my attention. I woke up and you weren't there. Is everything all right?" "Fine," I replied smoothly. "I struggle with insomnia. I didn't want to keep you awake." She perched on the edge of the coffee table. "You didn't have to leave your bed because of me. I don't think you would keep me awake anyway." I shook my head to put an end to the conversation. "Don't worry about it, Bella." "What are you listening to?" she asked, gesturing to my iPod. "Swan Lake?" Her mouth spread into a bright smile. "Tchaikovsky? Can I listen with you?" "By all means," I agreed, beckoning her to join me on the couch. She settled between my legs, leaning back against my chest. She took one of the earbuds, and I started the playlist at the beginning for her sake. As the music began, she closed her eyes, smiling in enjoyment. Bella was fast asleep by the end of the third movement, but I closed my eyes and let the music play on. The rest of the night passed this way, Bella's warmth acting as a constant reminder of her presence in the little world I retreated to.